Good evening. We're with the International Dyslexia Association, and we're going to be joined by Dr. Ronda Fritz tonight. So excited to get into her journey. We had a great Dyslexia Awareness Month last October, and already excited about November as we have our Dyslexia Professional Network coming up here tomorrow. So you can check us out on the website for that. Tonight, drop us a line. You can also email us at the branch. Hey,
Hi, Jared.
how are you?
Good. Sorry, I'm not very tech savvy about this
No,
Instagram stuff.
you are great. Nothing, no worries at all. Um, no, you know what? I almost mentioned it when we were on our pre-call, and so that was on me. So no worries. Thanks so much. Are you hearing me okay? Am I coming through on your?
Yes. How about me?
Yeah, you're perfect.
Okay, great.
So I was just introducing you, Dr. Fritz, coming from Eastern Oregon, and really excited to jump into your journey and just learn about maybe where we could start is just your connection to dyslexia in general.
Okay. So yeah, that's not a simple, fast answer, but um, I, it really started because of my son who really struggled learning to read. And at the time, I was already a teacher. And so I was really frustrated that I didn't know how to help him. And as time went on, we had him tested at OHSU, and they did diagnose him with dyslexia at that time, but they really didn't offer us a lot of solutions for that. And I mentioned to you earlier, Jared, that my background, my training as a teacher had told me that dyslexia wasn't a real thing. And so I took that with me with that diagnosis and didn't really pursue it any further until much later when he was 15. And I ended up at a session with Susan Barton at the International Reading Association conference. And that was a huge eye-opening experience and actually pretty emotional experience when I realized that all of the signs and symptoms that I should have been aware of, he had throughout his growing up. And then when I shared that with my husband that night after the conference, he said, you know, Rhonda, that was me. And so we started to realize that that was kind of the avenue that Trent got that from, but also in talking with my father, he didn't read until fifth grade. And so we know that it's really coming from both sides of the family. And so that's how I kind of got in the dyslexia space, but really it wasn't, I had to just learn what I could on my own. It wasn't really through my training.
I feel like so many parents have that story of, especially like my generation, and as we maybe different for students that are currently in motion now with all the research that's out there, but I feel like that's the journey. Like a lot of parents weren't aware of what these
Mhm.
signs are and symptoms. Uh, how would you coach maybe a parent through that, that feeling? Because it sounds like you kind of went through those emotions.
Oh, yes, a lot of emotions and I guess maybe a little bit of denial too. And I think some parents start there as well. But I I think once you make parents aware of those symptoms and talk to them about what it means, they're more likely to be accepting of that when they realize there's a solution. And I think that was what was missing for us is we didn't know there was anywhere to go with it. We just thought we had to learn to deal with it, which was very disheartening. But I wish I could say that I think it's different for kids now, but I think there's still parents going through the exact same thing, which is, why we're here trying to bring that awareness, to the forefront. So more parents and more kids don't have to be, I guess, suffer the way we.
That's a great point, and it really transitions well to the work you're doing at Eastern Oregon and some of the programming that you're doing around pre-service and in-service teachers. And I was wondering if you could maybe share a little bit of insights into that, because that work is just so important.
Yeah, I think a lot of the work that the Oregon branch of International Dyslexia Association, Decoding Dyslexia Oregon, some of the other advocacy groups have been really instrumental in helping me to make those changes at Eastern Oregon University, because that pressure from outside and the request for a change in the way teachers are prepared really helped me to be able to make the changes that I'm in the process of making right now. So we are in the process of transitioning our teacher prep program to more aligned with the science of reading. And I spent the last year on sabbatical developing a reading clinic. And the reason I went that direction was because regardless of what I was teaching my students in the classroom, they weren't able to go out into the field and practice what they were learning. So I needed to provide a space for them. And that's what the reading clinic will do. It'll allow them to learn the methods of structured literacy and then apply those right away with a student that they're working with in the clinic. So our pre-service teachers are doing that. Our reading endorsement program, which is for master's level students and teachers, usually it's teachers who are already practicing, will have that opportunity to work in the clinic for their practicum if they want to. But it's really a matter of us changing our approach in that program too, in the reading endorsement program. So I'll spend this year redoing syllabi and updating our reading endorsement program as well. But also part of the clinic is training in-service teachers so that at some point my students will have a place to go where they can practice what they're learning as more and more in-service teachers are getting trained. And that's been exciting. Those teachers are so excited and so hungry to learn better ways to support their readers in their classrooms. So it's fun to work with those people who've been in the trenches and they know what they don't know to some extent, where the pre-service teachers, they're just ready to learn it all, but don't realize how it could have been. So that's kind of an exciting piece of that. So yeah, lots of changes at EOU right now.
I gotta imagine, and my empathy for the teachers that are in it right now that, you know, didn't have that training or didn't have that knowledge or awareness of dyslexia or what students with learning challenges are facing in the classroom. But I gotta believe that it's almost that eye-opening experience that you had as a parent of like, whoa, I had all these students and now I have tools to reach them. What have you seen what has that process been like, just seeing that unfold?
Well, we're early on in that process. So my first group of in-service teachers are training right now, and they've had an orientation, but their first training is this Thursday. But even in the orientation, there was a lot of, oh, wow, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be telling them to look at the pictures. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to ask them to use context clues. So they realized, wow, I've been doing these things I shouldn't have been doing. And for some of them, that was really scary. Like, now I don't know what to do yet. And that's going to be a hard transition for them, especially when their districts have curriculum they're expected to use that includes those sorts of methods. We're going to have to navigate that. And I don't know what that's going to look like yet. I would hope that districts will be ready at some point to make those transitions, and some will and some may not be. But just having those tools, I think, will be really helpful for those teachers.
Yeah, no, it's got to be. The other question that I had is, you're doing this at the higher ed level, and I'm just wondering, how are you building that alignment? You know, that seems like some obstacles within higher ed to change programming, and I bet you're building some really strategic alignment. And I was just wondering if you could maybe share some insights there for maybe educators that are looking to build in that space.
Yeah, that is a huge challenge. And when I started at EOU, that wasn't the direction the university was going. So I kind of had to very carefully navigate that system and infiltrate, I guess is a word, some of my ideas and my philosophies quietly. But then as time went on and my colleagues started to see what I was doing, and I have to give my colleagues all the credit because they really have had an open mind that we don't always see in higher ed. And so I'm fortunate to be in that space for sure. But I did go about it as diplomatically as I could to make sure that I wasn't closing doors, because
Right.
if I had gone about it a different way, I could have been completely shut down. My role wasn't as the reading program director at that time. I just took on that role this year. So if I had done it differently, I'm afraid it might have had a different outcome. So I would say, speaking with other faculty at other universities that might be trying to make that transition, do so carefully, but at the same time, they're academics, their colleagues are academics, and the appeal was the science and the undeniable science behind what's best for kids with dyslexia and all kids in general.
So powerful. And as you were talking, there's two words that come to my mind, which is patience and persistence in your approach. Is that how you would describe it? Or how would you describe it for the...
I guess that's probably part of it. And I hate to admit this, but part of it is just that I am not someone that likes confrontation. So I navigated around some of that confrontation by taking it slow and making my case slowly. But yeah, I guess it did require some patience because we're going on year 8 and I'm just now making those changes. So it took some time to just sort of let it ride and add a little bit at a time.
We're yeah, I was just gonna say grateful for your dedication because the impact that it's gonna make. But I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was just going to say, I think that going on sabbatical last year, so it was the year before that I had to apply. And so that sort of helped because as they saw, my goal in sabbatical was to get this reading clinic going. And then they started asking some questions. So what does that mean? Or what will you be doing there that's different than what they'll get in the schools? That sort of helped open those conversations also.
Yeah, there's some really cool stats that the Oregon branch has talked about with the level once you get these facilitated science-based reading programs in our K through 3rd grade system, like solving almost 90% of the challenges that these kids are facing or these students are facing. Is that aligned with what your research is and what you're finding out as well?
Absolutely. As you're aware, if we do the right things in Tier 1 instruction and Tier 2 supports, we can expect 95% of kids to learn to read and to be proficient by the end of 3rd grade if we're doing the right things. So I think that's what drives me. That's not even where we're not even close to that right now, but we know it's possible. So the more we can do to make that happen, that's my goal.
That's our goal as well. So totally aligned with you, and anything that I think the Oregon branch can do to continue to support your efforts, because we know if it can get done in the classroom at these critical stages of students' lives, it can be effective for all readers. So it's just huge work.
Yeah.
If we were to dive into what your vision is for education is maybe beyond your university, what what would you say that would be?
I think just a general understanding of by not just educational systems, but the public in general, that all children are capable of being proficient readers. And I think one thing that I've really struggled with is that piece of people not wanting to talk about dyslexia, or pigeonholing structured literacy that it's just for kids with dyslexia. So really getting that awareness out there that structured literacy is good for all kids, absolutely critical for children with dyslexia, but all children can benefit from structured literacy. And I think that's the message that needs to get out there, because, and I think that's where my colleagues came from. When I first started talking about it, they thought, oh, that's just for struggling readers. And helping people to realize, no, this is just good practice for all kids. We just know it's absolutely critical for kids who struggle.
On that note, are you finding messaging that is working for people that might not know, or conversations you've even had? Is there a specific messaging that does work, or is it kind of trial by error with that?
A little trial by error. And I think what's happening here is, word of mouth, and people are starting to talk. Like for my reading clinic, I trained a group of mentor teachers this summer who will be who are mentoring my first group of in-service teachers in this cohort. And they start talking to their colleagues, and then their colleagues start talking to others. And that's been one of the biggest ways that we've spread that message. And as they talk and they share podcasts they've listened to, or resources that they have, it's become empowering for teachers to finally learn there might be something they can do, that their work really matters. And I think that's what's important for them to understand, that, yeah, your teaching can make such a huge difference. And that message about, we can rewire kids' brains if we're giving the right kind of instruction is super powerful for teachers, that they have that kind of power, to change kids' lives.
It's so awesome. I mean, if every university isn't breaking down their system and doing what you're doing right now to change the way they are teaching teachers, and even opening the doors for people that have graduated from their programs to give them this current instruction, if every university across the country started acting the way that you all are acting, that could literally change our whole system. We could have so many more readers. We could hit those 95% that you're talking about. I mean, it makes such a difference.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be great? That was so exciting.
I'm putting it out there. I'm putting it out there in space right now. If you're an educator at a university, let's get on it. Anything we can do to help support and give you the resources or literature behind it, come visit the Oregon branch and check us out.
Yeah.
I want to leave you with the final word. What's your message?
I think I would just go back to that. Let's raise awareness. Let's make sure administrators know, that teachers know they have options, that parents know that they have options. I think that's the biggest thing, is just really, you would think we would be at a place where everyone would be aware, but we aren't there. I don't know about, more the metro area, but I know here in Eastern Oregon, we're not there. So we have a lot of work to do in that way. And so I think just getting the message out there is super important, and support these kiddos.
I'm with you 1,000%. Dr. Fritz, thank you so much for taking on a Monday to join us and share this conversation. Your work is just amazing, and we're so grateful.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Have a great night.
You too. Good night.